Hey there, sports fans. You're about to check out one of the couple, two, or three best podcasts out there. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Today, we got the Bears making final roster moves. Derrick Rose, bum knee. And the Northsiders' new savior, Soler. So grab yourself a Polish sausage and a nice cold one. Park your keister and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host Sean. We've got a pretty big episode for you today. We're going to be talking about the Bears' upcoming regular season first game and starting next week, finishing up the regular season, the 53-man roster finalization. We've got some Cubs news this week with Jorge Soler coming up. White Sox. We got a little bit of Blackhawks, a little bit of Bulls. But we're going to be mainly focusing on the Bears this week. We also have a new guest on the show. We'd like to take a quick second to mention our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. Hockey comes back to the BMO Saturday, October 11th. Don't miss all the exciting action. Head over to icehogs.com for your tickets now. And as always, you can participate in the show by either heading over to swerskisports.com, that's SWERSKI sports.com, or our Twitter page and hit us up there. At Swerski Sports, our Facebook page, facebook.com/Swerski Sports. If you want to hit us up by email, it's Bill Swerski, stc@gmail.com. If you want to leave us a voice message that we can play on the air, you can use our hotline number at 847-261-4146. So if you want to call the show and express your outrage, you could definitely do that at 847-261-4146, and we'll play your comment on the air. So welcome to the show, JT. How you doing, man?
Doing all right. How are you?
Good. So I guess the big thing going on is Chicago Bears. The final 53-man roster is it's been finalized this morning. We're recording Sunday, so this morning they're going to be doing their practice squad. Got their first game of the season next weekend. Were there any surprises to you about the 53-man roster?
Yeah, actually there was. I was actually really surprised they cut Kelvin Hayden from the team. I was actually expecting him to make the team and contribute because we all know Charles Tillman sometimes and Tim Jennings are prone to injuries. So kind of shocking to me.
I was surprised, but I was surprised because I figured he's a veteran presence, and if Tillman does go down, they have a mix of veterans and rookies and younger guys. But watching some of the play that he had during this preseason, I wasn't shocked because he wasn't playing that well. He had a lot of mental lapses, and I didn't see him when I went to training camp a couple times. I didn't really watch the cornerbacks at all, but from what I'm hearing, they kind of translated from practice to the games, and I think that they felt much more comfortable going with younger guys who compete or contribute on special teams.
Yeah, and talking people, keep it in the secondary, talking people who can contribute on special teams is Danny McCray, who's been very impressive on the safety position. I didn't expect much from him, to be honest with you. I know me and you had talked before a little bit about how we thought Adrian Wilson may or may not be on the roster. He obviously got cut. But Danny McCray stepping up and making plays. How about that guy?
Yeah, they signed him to be a special teams guy. That was what he was brought in for, and he really played well as a safety. So I'm happy for the guy. And you know, as far as Adrian Wilson, I thought he played pretty well, but I think the ultimate thing was if he wasn't going to start, he's too old of a guy and wasn't going to contribute on special teams.
Right.
And so that was it for him. But if there's a major injury on the secondary, I would not be surprised if they picked him up off the streets because he knows the defense and he played well enough in training camp.
Yeah, and another person I was kind of surprised to let go even though they signed in the offseason was MD Jennings because they gave him the injury waiver and the settlement, but still letting someone go, that's, the Bears defense doesn't have enough. I wouldn't say doesn't have enough. They're kind of limited in the secondary because of just the safety play is just still kind of scary to me watching it throughout the whole entire preseason. What are your thoughts?
For me, it's going to come down to the defensive line. We don't have any superstars as far as safety goes. And as far as the corners, if everyone stays healthy, we've got decent corners, but it's going to come down to defensive line play. If they can get penetration, it's going to make the cornerbacks and the safeties look that much better. That was the issue last year, is with the defensive ends couldn't rush the passer to save their lives. The defensive tackles were all decimated with injuries. Quarterbacks had all day long to throw the ball, and there's not a cornerback in the history of the NFL that's good enough to cover somebody for 10 seconds. And if you have 10 seconds to throw, at least two people are going to be wide open. So, and that just made the defensive backs look bad. I mean, not to say they played bad, don't get me wrong, but it made them look worse.
Right. And, talking about our new addition, Jared Allen, replacing Julius Peppers, one thing I'm worried about with him coming in the beginning of the season, we do go to San Francisco and then we play the Bills, and both teams have mobile quarterbacks, and Jared Allen didn't play much in the preseason, and I'm kind of worried he's not going to have his playing legs under him just yet.
Yeah, I mean, especially after watching them get manhandled by Russell Wilson and Johnny Manziel with their mobility, that scared me a little bit. Briggs has looked really slow in the preseason. Tillman has looked slow. Jared Allen's just been resting. So, and he's also notorious for not keeping his contain.
Yep.
So that's a little bit scary for me. With the Bills, at least, I'm not worried. I don't think the Bills are good enough to beat the Bears.
No, they're not, but it's still the fact that the Bears were the worst run defense last year. The Bills have two of the best running backs combo rather in CJ Spiller and Fred Davis or Fred Jackson. And I'm just another person who I'm not really worried about, but I've just been iffy about ever since we drafted him. That's Shea McClellan. Moving back to linebacker, and it was very apparent he's struggling against the run game.
Yeah, he is, and I guess his issue is that he's fast guy, he's a strong guy. He's trying to take on blocks instead of using his speed to go around the blocks, and he's not big enough to. He wasn't when he was 30 pounds heavier last year, big enough to take on these huge offensive linemen and use his strength. So what makes him think now that he's lost his weight that he's going to be able to do it? He needs to use his speed, and he needs to go in and get underneath the shoulder pads and where he's not getting square blocked. That's his problem. And he needs to keep his lanes better, because I've seen a lot where there's a big gap and it's his gap that he's blown. And so I'm a little bit nervous about the linebacker play in general from all three positions.
Hey, I'm going to be honest with you, though. John Bostic, though, on the run defense this year, much improved over last year. He was blowing up blockers, going through the blocks, going through fullbacks, getting to the running backs, and making big hits when he was there. He's known as a big hitter. But in pass coverage, though, he's kind of susceptible to maybe some weak zone play and some man-to-man coverage play, depending on what tight end he's matched up against. But most linebackers are, depending on who you're going against. But how about Christian Jones making the roster undrafted out of Florida State? How about that guy, huh?
You know what? I'm not surprised. I actually really liked Christian Jones coming out of Florida State. I said it in my draft show that I liked him a lot, and I thought he was going to end up falling towards – I figured he would be a fifth rounder, and he ended up being undrafted, which worked out for the Bears. His issue was that he moved around so much that he didn't get focused on enough at any one linebacker position, and that hurt him as far as his draft status. But I think it's going to help him in the NFL because he can be versatile, and he's such a big, fast, strong guy that I really like him.
Yeah, absolutely. He fairly impressive. speaking of people who were undrafted that got released, I'm kind of disappointed that Jordan Lynch is gone, man. Although the Bears still have an opportunity to pick him up on the practice squad, but as of right now, he's on the streets and anybody can pick him up. And hey, he's a hometown kid.
Yeah, I like Jordan Lynch. The odds were really stacked against him. They have a lot of good running back play, and I think it just came down to he didn't have enough reps, and that's a numbers game. There's only so many reps to be had, and he's switching positions. But I have a feeling that if David Fales would have failed and been terrible,
that's the worst name possible. David Fales, like that's just something you read like in a newspaper, like David Fales.
I'm so glad he doesn't play in New York because the Post would have been having a field day with that if he ever went in.
In the fourth game though, he wasn't too bad. He had that touchdown pass to Santonio Holmes, so he didn't look too bad, even though the Bears still lost. But it was only the fourth. It's the fourth preseason game. Not many people are playing. But I want to go back a little bit and talk about something, and that was I think it was 34-3 loss to the Seahawks. The first team everywhere just looked bad, and I'm really starting to get worried about the Bears throughout the season.
The positives of that game, the things that didn't make me nervous, were the offensive line was really good at stopping their defensive linemen from getting any penetration. Jay Cutler had time to throw. The wide receivers were playing really well against their cornerbacks, which is impressive because of how well they played last year. Even Richard Sherman Brandon Marshall was getting open on Richard Sherman. That was good. They were able to run the ball a little bit, which was the first time this preseason that they've been able to run the ball, even though they didn't do it very much. But the offense got stalled by stupid penalties and dropped passes. So I think those are just mental issues that, those will get worked out. So I wasn't worried about the offense so much, but the defense looked bad.
Oh, yeah, man. The Bears have always struggled historically against running quarterbacks. Remember, 2 years ago we played Colin Kaepernick and he lit us up.
That was his first game.
And he tore us apart, man. I was like, yeah, Bears are looking good. We're going to watch this game. I was so excited. And my excitement died quickly.
I have a friend that's a 49ers fan, and I was like, oh, man, the Bears defense is going to feast on this rookie quarterback. Wow, did I eat my words in that game.
So let's preview the Bills game. And something I didn't realize until today was that Kyle Orton is the backup quarterback for the Bills coming into Sunday.
Yeah, I want to talk about it. I mean, we focus on the Chicago sports, but Orton is a local guy, Purdue, played for the Bears. So I'm feeling fine talking about this, is that he fleeced the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah,
he refused to retire so he wouldn't have to return the $3 million signing bonus he had, or roster bonus or whatever it was, and then he just kept stringing them out long enough where they finally cut him, so got to keep the $3 million, and then went and signed another contract with the Bills.
Yeah, and there was talks that Phil Emery was interested in maybe bringing him to Chicago, which I thought would be a great move. Give Cutler a solid backup like last year, and he doesn't come. But let's preview the game for Sunday. What are your thoughts on what the Bears are going to do coming next Sunday against the Bills?
I mean, we've seen on offense what they're going to do. They are where Lovey said we get off the bus running. Is this Bears team gets off the bus passing? They're gonna open up and they're going to do the intermediate passes, and try to stretch that defense of the Bills to open up the running lanes. And that's what this team has to do. Is they don't run block well enough to be able to just ram the ball down your throat right off the bat. So they're going to have to open up the run with the pass, which is fine because they've got a lot of weapons. I'm looking at Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall getting a lot of looks, and them rotating the number 3 wide receiver to I still don't think they know who's going to emerge as the guy. I think every one of them has shown a lot of good play.
If anybody's got the credentials to do that, it's going to be San Antonio Holmes.
Yeah, and I think he just hasn't got enough of a look yet, just because of being on the streets and coming in. So it was a little bit of getting his feet wet and learning the playbook. But he he came in and looked really well, and I would not be surprised if you see him returning punts after how great he looked on the one punt return he had.
Yeah, against the Browns. Yeah, he split those two tackles and he got like 15 yards. That's just something that a lot of Bear fans and I myself didn't realize was so big was the absence of Devin Hester and just how much we've struggled in the preseason of finding his replacement. And who'd have thought it'd come from the old man home? So, hey,
Yeah,
more power to him.
and just watching everybody return kickoffs, and we still don't have the kickoff returner. Is
No.
Chris Williams? They brought him in to be that guy, and he looked so timid returning kicks. I mean, when he saw where he should be, putting his head down and running through those holes, is he started tippy toeing. And once you slow down, you're done on a kickoff.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what he did. He tippy toed all the time.
And that's why he's on the streets now.
Yeah, and Devin Hester, you can't pay him millions of dollars to do to just return kicks. And
we overpaid for him, no doubt. He was making about $3 million a year and about $2 million too much.
Yeah, if he was willing to take $1 million, I would be. I don't know how the negotiations went, or even if there was going to be them, but if he would have taken $1 million, that would have been a good deal, especially since all the money that they're throwing at guys to try to be the return guy.
Yeah, because I mean it's a nice commodity to have in the league because many teams forget, hey, special teams can win you games and lose you games. Remember 2006, Devin Hester changes that Cardinals game around, and the Bears win.
Yeah,
So,
that Cardinals game was two players just putting on Superman capes. It was Brian Urlacher and Devin Hester just carrying that whole team.
absolutely, and the Bears who we thought they were.
I still love that quote.
That guy, he was mad. But going back to the Bills, as far as our defense against them, I just hope that they don't get run happy and expose us for what I think we might be as another poor defensive team against the run. I do believe we are going to be a very, very solid team against the pass, but the Bills have a great offensive line. They have Eric Woods and Eric Peters up there. Scott Chandler as the tight end is a very good blocking tight end. CJ Spiller and Fred Jackson are always our home run hitters, especially CJ Spiller. He can take it 80 yards anytime. And they have two pretty decent wide receivers in Sammy Watkins, which it's yet out to see if he's even going to play because he has the hairline fracture in his rib.
Yeah, I heard that he's not going to play first game.
Okay, all right. And then Robert Woods, he's all right. He's not bad. He's still developing. But overall, though, I think this could be a closer game than a lot of people think. I do still think the Bears are going to win just because of the fact that they have like one of the most potent offenses in the NFL besides probably the Broncos. And I'm going to see the Bears win about 28-14 or 28-17, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I think that's what it's going to come down to is I think what we're going to be saying after the game is, this defense didn't get any better. But I think there's going to be signs that they were better. I think it's going to be the mobility of the quarterback that's going to make the Bears defense look worse than it is, because I don't think they're going to have on the ground. I don't think Buffalo's going to have a bad game, but I don't think they're going to have a really good game. I think the 4 defensive tackles for the Bears are all very good, which is surprising me because I really didn't like Ego Ferguson coming out of LSU. I thought,
Really?
Yeah, he was. I read all of the scouting reports, but I watched every single snap of his over a 4-game period, and I didn't like what I saw. I mean, I didn't think he was going to be a flop, but I just didn't like what I saw, and he's looked much better as a pro than I thought he did in college. And Will Sutton.
One thing about
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Will Sutton was a guy I really liked, and he's impressed so far. He's much better against the run than I thought he would be. I figured he would be more of a get to the quarterback defensive tackle. But Paya and Ratliff have looked great. So this 4-man rotation, and then even when you consider that they're going to throw Willie Young and Lamar Houston as defensive tackles in pass rush situations.
Yeah, Willie Young is somebody who, although he's kind of had a sketchy track record with some of the stuff that's happened, he playing for the Lions, didn't do bad. Comes here, and he's somebody I could see that could be the catalyst for the entire defensive line, getting rotations in, giving Jared Allen a break, giving Lamar Houston a break. I mean, people forget Lamar Houston is a 300-pound man. I mean, he's gonna get tired, and I just see if Willie Young comes in, there's not going to be a drop in play.
No, I don't think so. I think the whole defensive line has played very well. I mean, they had some tough choices to make as far as who they kept, and to keep 6 defensive tackles, that means, I'm sorry, 6 defensive ends, 4 defensive tackles. Then they must have really had a tough time deciding, and I was a little bit surprised that they kept Cornelius Washington but didn't keep Austin Lane.
Right. Also, Austin Lane's a guy, he's bounced around the league a little bit, but he's very structured in what he does. He doesn't get out of position. He kind of struggles in the pass rush, but against the run game, he's much more he's stronger. And the Bears need more run defense than they do pass rush right now, and that's something he would bring to the table for the Bears.
Yeah, so it's so I'm hoping that what we're going to see is better rotation at the defensive tackles to keep guys fresh. Jared Allen looked great last year at his age, but if you look
keyword his age.
Yeah, but the thing is if you look at his production by quarter, is by the end of the game he was tired out because he played I think like 97% of the snaps for them last year, and so if you think about it, if the Bears are probably going to only have him play 70% of the snaps at most, that he's going to have better production because he's going to have rest in the game. So if you look at his production by quarter, he was tired by the end of the game. So he in bursts he still has the old Jared Allen stuff, and I guess that's part of the key of carrying 6 defensive ends is you can spell him and let him get a rest and come back in.
Absolutely. He's one of the best in the league, and the Bears don't really get any drop off with losing Julius Peppers, probably one of the most athletic defensive ends ever. But few people who did make the team, and I'm still up and down about Brian De La Puente, because the Bears, I don't know what they're doing with Roberto Garza, but it's just right now Garza's obviously the starter, but Puente's no scrub himself.
No, he's not. And but I mean, with the offensive line, they only carried 8 guys, which makes me think that 2 things are going to happen soon. Is that they're going to put Marquise Wilson on the short-term injury, so he's going to miss the first half of the season, and they're going to search the waiver wire for another offensive lineman because they only carried 8, and last year they carried 9, and De La Puente's nursing that sprained knee. So if needed, he's going to come in there a little bit hobbled. And then you have Jordan Mills, who's been hobbled most of training camp, and you got rid of Eben Britton, who was your best long-term backup, or your backup that had the most experience.
He was the most, besides De La Puente, he's probably the most versatile too because he can do everything else. He can play tackle, he can play guard, he can possibly play center. And De La Puente's the same way. He can play guard and center, and the Bears need that because if Kyle Long goes down, although a lot of people don't think he should have made the Pro Bowl last year, he did, and I thought he deserved it. He's a great guard, and also another player who the Bears, most underlooked player probably on the Bears team is Matt Slauson. This guy does it all for the Bears, and I feel like if one of them go down, De La Puente can walk in and do not as maybe just as good, but I mean you can't replace a Pro Bowl guard or a perennial Pro Bowl guard in Matt Slauson.
Yeah, Matt Slauson was easily the best offensive lineman for the Bears last year, and he in this preseason so far, no drop off. I think this Bears offensive line is pretty good. I thought last year Jordan Mills was the weak link, but so far in the preseason, I think Roberto Garza is going to be the weak link. He's looking a little slow out there. It looks like this time off has not been good for him. Hopefully it's just a old body that's starting to take a little bit longer to warm up and get ready for playing. because he didn't look very good in the preseason. And I thought that the Bears should have. There was several really good offensive or centers in the draft. I felt they should have at least entertained going after one.
Yeah, and I thought that too. Garza's 35 years old. I mean, the guy is not a spring chicken. He's been an old mule for the Bears. He's done it all for them throughout the years, but they need youth. They need youth, and they did that last year with Kyle Long and Jordan Mills, and it worked out. Although Jordan Mills struggled a little bit more than Kyle Long, obviously. But Roberto Garza, 35 years old. Even this draft, they really need to look in a different direction.
Yeah, they have to. But I think, the way they looked at it is they have a lot of holes to fill and only a certain number of pieces to fill those holes. And they felt that signing Garza to a one-year deal bought them another year. And with also picking up De La Puente, that also gave them a little bit more time. So I imagine they'll draft somebody this year or address it in the offseason. So hopefully Garza is able to play well enough this year.
Yeah, and there's a few highly touted centers coming in the second round this year, and Eric Demiscus and Isaac Slimano. Demiscus out of Auburn and Slimano out of Oregon State, and the Bears can get one of those two out of in the second round. I mean that's a big improvement. Second rounders are always projected to start, and I mean the last great center was Olin Kreutz, and hey, we saw how valuable he was to the team throughout the years as well.
Total a-hole, but did you ever hear?
He hit somebody in the face with a
Fred. What's his name? The right tackle. But I was listening to the radio once, and they had oh my God, who was the third linebacker for the Bears? It was Briggs, Urlacher, and Hunter Hillenmeyer. Yeah, yep. Hillenmeyer said that Olin Kreutz bullied him the whole time he was there.
Really?
He said, yeah, it made him not want to go to work. He's like, Olin Kreutz was a huge bully.
That's wow. I mean, he was a great player, and I can see why he was a bully, considering he was an offensive lineman. I mean, he gets pushed around all the time, so you got to fight back.
Yeah, it made me appreciate more that when he went to the Saints, that he quit in the middle of the season and just walked away.
Yeah, so, he walked. He was like, "I'm done." I was like, "Man."
Yeah.
Which the Bears kind of did him dirty, anyways, at the end. But
well, he was terrible. He was on a contract. They were way overpaying him for what he was. They were propping him up out there. People were giving him the benefit of the doubt because of the name, but he didn't play very well those last couple of years.
No, same thing. And speaking of last couple of years, Garza's really been very good through the twilight of his career, and we see Kreutz, one of the best at during his heyday, dwindled away in his twilight. So Garza is somebody who's not really had much drop off, but has been consistent. Although it hasn't been great or bad, it's just been average throughout. But
I think 2 years ago he played better than he did when he first came to the Bears. I think he's improved up until last year. He had improved every year he was here, which is really impressive considering he is in his mid-30s. So hopefully he's able to hold up this year, because if he can hold up and save De La Puente as to be a backup, spot backup here and there, I think this offensive line is going to be phenomenal.
Right, and the one thing you touched on a little bit earlier in the podcast, and one thing that's really been bothering me, and I just wish they'd get a little bit more mean, is in the run blocking. And I would like to see them be able to pound Matt Forte up in the middle and wear defenses down, and then take it to the outside on a screen or on a pitch. Because Forte's a great outside runner. He's a great screen player. He's a great going out into the flat or going out into the route. But when it comes to pounding it between the tackles or pounding between the center and the guard, the Bears struggle with that. And I would like to see them wear down defenses more. Yeah,
they're the only place they really run the ball well is going to the left side, because Bushrod is really good, Slosson's really good, and Kyle Long is so athletic that he's able to pull and really do a good job of pulling, because he doesn't run like a guard. He runs like a linebacker. And so you're able to bring 3 offensive linemen and blow that whole side of the lineup. Whereas Bushrod, you're not going to pull him. Slosson is not. That's a one weakness he really has is pulling.
Yeah, but he's mean and nasty, man. He'll,
Oh,
he'll
yeah.
he'll get in there and bang with people.
Oh, absolutely. You know, that's the one knock on the guy is that he's not that great at pulling. But when he, mans up right there, you're going to be in for a dogfight. So that's why they run so well on the left side. But going to the right side is, they need to mean up a little bit. And they looked pretty good against Seattle. They opened up holes, which was nice. But the rest of the preseason didn't look so good. In the end of last season, they weren't running the ball either.
No, Matt Forte's really struggled throughout the preseason, and some of it has to do with the offensive line. Some of it has to do with he's more of a workhorse running back. He needs the carries to get his feel, and then once later on in games is when he's really whenever he has the killer instinct and he ends games. But early in that's the problem with the preseason. He's more of a workhorse, and he doesn't get his carries.
I mean, I think what I would like to see is I don't think this offensive line's ever going to be the one that's like the Redskins Hogs or that old 90s Dallas Cowboys offensive line where they just battered crap out of you and ran you over. So I think I'm really surprised that the Bears don't use the short passing game more as a running game and swing passes to Forte, because once that guy has some open space, he's big enough where he really makes, if he gets to the defensive backs, he really makes them think, all right, do I brace myself to bring down this big guy, or am I going to be ready for him to make a juke move? And that's something that Walter Payton did really well, is if he saw you bracing, he was going to put a move on you and go around you. And if he saw you ready to go either way, he was going to go right over you. And I think Matt Forte has a little bit of that because he's a really big, strong guy. And I think if you can get him to the open field a little more with some swing passes and sweeps, I think they would be better served. I think that would open up the defense a little bit and make them more honest.
Yeah. So enough about the Bears. I mean, do you want to talk about the Bulls a little bit? Because how about Derrick Rose?
Yeah, coming off of the whole season where he missed, and the season before he didn't play in the off season. I mean, I'm sure he practiced and things like that, but he wasn't competing. And he came in and just before he got injured again, he looked really rusty and not very good. He didn't look like a reigning MVP. So I thought it was really important that he played for Team USA, and I've said it several times on the show. I think it's really important because he's going to work through the soreness, because when you're just playing around or you're practicing, once you get sore, you stop. But when you're playing in games, you need to work through that soreness, and it's not anything structural. It's just part of the healing process of his knee. So he's going to work through that soreness. He's going to work through nights where he's a little bit rusty. He's going to have to work through all these things. So he's doing it for Team USA. So by the time he gets to the Bulls, hopefully a lot of that rust is shaken off and he can just hit the ground running.
So what do you – I'm really excited to see the rivalry pick up again against the Bulls and the Cavaliers. And it's gonna be fun this year. I'm ready to hear some good sound bites from Joakim Noah this year, considering how much he hates Cleveland or anywhere else LeBron James is. But I'm really excited to see how the entire, because the Bears, I mean not the Bears, the Bulls are 10-man are a 10-man deep team, and I'm really excited to see how well they gel by the end of the season.
Yeah, me too. I think they. At first, when they were making their roster moves in the offseason, I was really upset that they didn't get Carmelo. I thought that was the linchpin that this team needed. And when they were making their moves, as they were doing it, I was so annoyed. I was like, I can't believe this. I can't believe that. Once I saw, like, when they got towards the end of what they were doing, I stepped back and it was almost like I couldn't see the forest through the trees. And I was like, wow, they quietly made a really good team way better. All of their deficiencies, I think they've addressed in some way or another.
Doug McDermott can score. Pau Gasol can score and play defense. And another person who I'm really excited to see mature again this year is Jimmy Butler. That guy is phenomenal. He's a great person. He plays hard. I know there's been some talks of him and Tibbs having problems with the minutes. But overall, though, Jimmy Butler is probably the most complete player on that team.
Yeah, it's they've looked really great in what they've done with the team, and what they quietly did too is they added Aaron Brooks to be the backup for Derrick Rose, which I thought was a fantastic move.
Well, they got Heinrich too. They got Heinrich still too, so he'll be Heinrich and then Aaron Brooks, but Heinrich likes to play shooting guard too.
So you've got a depth at every position. You can go a really big roster. You can have Taj, you can have Noah, you can have Gasol, you could have Mirotic, and you could have a big roster. And you've got Dunleavy and McDermott, big guards that are big forwards that can shoot the ball. Mirotic can shoot the ball. Gasol could shoot the ball. You've got a lot of depth. You've got you're 3 deep at center, 3 deep at power forward. This is a roster that even when they're benching people and for rest, that they're still going to come at you, and they can come at you anyway. They can do a small guys, big guys. They can do whatever.
Right, and one person I'm glad to see go finally is Carlos Boozer. Thank you, Chicago, for giving him the amnesty. That guy, he was just dead weight on the floor. He would shoot, and that was it.
I think he could still be a valuable guy in this league in the right system. He needs to be somewhere that's very offensive oriented, and where he can have a lot of touches and shoot the ball a lot and be the number 2 guy or the number 3 guy. And it's a shame that when they brought him over, that he wasn't who they thought he was going to be. And the thing is, if you look at him purely by the numbers, he did well for the Bulls. I mean, he did his rebounds and his points, that the double doubles that you expected, but he never did it when you needed him to do it.
Yeah, and the other thing that bothers me is watching Tom Thibodeau coach. One thing I love is good, solid defense in basketball. And he was killing Thibodeau's system because of how lazy he was on the defensive side.
Well, it was frustrating too, is because at the end of the game, you still need somebody in there that can score, but you couldn't put Carlos Boozer in there because he was a liability on defense. So the guy could still put up some points, but he was a liability on the defensive side. So it was really frustrating. It was he left the Bulls with no other choice but to bench him in the fourth quarter. So he was a 3-quarter player, and you can't be that on a championship team.
No, but now the Bulls have every player just about on the Bulls team is a 4-quarter player, and one person I expect to have a big year is going to be Doug McDermott. I am very excited for this young guy. He's got all the tools. He's a polished collegiate athlete who comes out and has an opportunity to put on a show in his first year and possibly win Rookie of the Year.
One tool he's completely missing is voice. Clearly, you didn't hear him do the 7th inning stretch for the Cubs last week. Oh, was he bad? I mean, he was Roseanne Barr bad.
Oh man, I didn't hear it.
Yeah, it was terrible. But I think, I don't know if I expect him to win Rookie of the Year just because I don't think he's going to get the minutes. But I think he's a very polished guy coming out of after 4 years in college, and I think you're going to see the difference between a rookie that played 2 years in college and a rookie that played 4 years in college. I think he's a little more polished, and I think he's going to be a really good player off of the bench. And a lot of people knock his defense, but if you watched him play at Creighton, he's individually he's not a great defender. He's not as athletic as you may need him to be a great one-on-one defender like a Kobe or a LeBron, but he plays really good team defense. He knows where all his teammates are going to be. He knows where he's supposed to be. He knows his assignment, and he does that well. And I think that is going to really put him in favor with Coach Thibodeau, because that's the kind of guy he's looking for. Is you don't have to be the best individual defender, but you need to hustle and you need to play your man and play your position.
Right, because Thibs likes to run the man zone defense, and he likes to rotate defenders, and As long as McDermott's going to be where Thibs wants him, everything's going to be all right. Because if they're coming to the basket, Joakim's got it. So don't worry about that. Just cover the baseline and cover the wing. So I'm excited for the Bulls this year. I think it's going to be a great year, and I fully expect them to be in the Eastern Conference Final.
I mean, there's not much competition there, but it's really going to be fun watching them play the Cavaliers, because I don't think the Cavaliers made the right move by trading Kevin Love, but for trading for Kevin Love, it might be
this year. This year's just not going to be the year. I mean, they've got to gel. They learned that with the big three, whenever they did it in Miami the first year. I mean, they did get to the NBA Finals, but they didn't do much after that.
No, it's just it takes time to be able to gel, but I don't think that Kevin Love is the long-term answer. I mean, when you have the number one pick in Andrew Wiggins, and you're able to, to have that guy with a LeBron James, I think that lends you to be a long-term, really good powerhouse. But what tells me that is, they don't know if LeBron's going to be there long-term, so they want to win now.
I think LeBron James is going to be there long-term. The reason he signed that short contract was because the max contract salary is going to go up, and he wants to be the most highest paid player on his team.
Oh yeah, and it's sad that the best player in the league isn't the highest paid player on his team always.
He's never been the best highest paid player on his team, which is sad considering there's nobody that can compete with him. But I think Derrick Rose again could be that dark horse that competes with LeBron James, because Derrick Rose is more athletic than LeBron James from a pound to pound standpoint. But Derrick Rose, one thing he's always missed is a killer jump shot, and he's developed that with his time off.
Yeah, but the thing about LeBron James is he can play all five positions, and that's really rare in this. I mean, he can play against the center, and
he's basically the Magic Johnson of our time.
Yes, except a better outside shooter.
Yep.
And so he's just phenomenal, and I hate the guy.
Me and you both.
But he's phenomenal, and I always hated Miami. I've always hated them, and I've never hated Cleveland Cavaliers. So it'll be nice to have him on a team that I don't hate, that I can just root against him rather than just have deep down hatred for the team. Because with Miami, it went down from their fans are the fakest fans around.
That's the truth.
And now that there's no LeBron and there's no Bosh, you're gonna watch that just there's no fans. Everyone's gonna stop and be like, oh no, I was never a Heat fan.
Go Cavs, go Cavs.
Yeah, everyone's gonna be buying new hats. So it's fake fans. Pat Riley I don't like. They just basically took a scrub roster and they were like, all right, well, we're gonna cheat the system and rig it to get three all-stars, right? Bring them in, and that was crappy. So it's from everything about the Heat just drove me nuts. They were a good team.
They were a great team. They won a couple championships, but overall though they slowly learned that a real team aspect will win a game before.
Yeah, I mean that's what won them titles. Is it wasn't the big three as much as it was having really good veterans and coming off the bench.
Yep, and then that going back that relates to the Bulls, because the Bulls have really good players coming off the bench, and they have a few D Rose, Joakim are two players who are perennial stars in this league whenever they're healthy, and the Bulls have players coming off of the bench that are going to contribute and are not just some random scrub players. The worst player probably on the roster, and he's not even a bad player, is Tony Snell, and just because he's young and he's not as polished as everyone else is.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of question marks because we don't know what Paul Gasol still has in the tank. We don't know how Derrick Rose is going to play over a whole season, and if he can play a whole season. We don't know for certain what McDermott's going to bring, and we don't know what Mirotic is going to play like, and we don't know how much the offseason playing in the summer league has helped Snell. So there's a lot of things. We have anticipations, and we have what we think's going to happen based on, a lot of like what Mirotic was able to do in the Europe and what McDermott did in the summer league and college, and so we have a lot of evidence to pointing to these things are going to work out well. It's until it's actually playing real games, there's still some question marks.
Yeah, but there's a lot of optimism that should be in Chicago right now because, hey, you have all the pieces, and if they can gel, it's going to be a great year. It may be the best year since the Jordan era.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is. I mean, there's been some good teams since then, but I think this team is going to be really good, and it's kind of funny that I've been mentioning this before. They could put out a whole five-player roster right now, on the floor of all white guys, and and wait, 5 white guys and still be able to win a game.
That's true. It's interesting to see what they've built in Chicago. It's a good mix of a lot of different style of players.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's all.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Since this is a Chicago Bears episode, we're gonna head over to baseball, but we're gonna keep it a little bit brief. We're not gonna go into too much detail. We'll start with the Northsiders because I talked to Gary earlier today, and he was feeling a little bit cranky because of the White Sox play, and he ended up having some. He was having some family fun yesterday. I'm a little jealous of that, but he wanted me to say he was angry with his White Sox. So we'll start with the Cubs. And I guess the two big newses would be the emergence of Jorge Soler brought him up to the majors, and the issues surrounding Starlin Castro. So as far as Jorge Soler, he didn't get the big hoopla and fanfare that Javi Baez did coming up, but his first foray into the major leagues was a lot different than Javi Baez's. So Jorge Soler, he comes up and in his first at bat hits a home run, and he looks like a much more professional hitter up there than Javi Baez. I mean, Javi Baez can hit the ball to the moon, and he's just got these extraordinary bat speed, and he's got these physical tools, but he doesn't look as polished. Jorge Soler, even though he's missed a lot of the season with some hamstring injuries, he's coming up there and he just looks like a much more comfortable professional hitter. A lot like how Jose Abreu came up this year and didn't look like a rookie. He came up there looking like somebody that knew how to play baseball in the majors. And Soler, in his granted, Gary keeps reminding me this is 4 games. Talk to him at the end of the month. Talk to him a year from now. It's true. I don't want to sound like I'm anointing the guy as the next coming or already have his plaque at Cooperstown, but he's really showing you something that to look forward to for the future. And in 4 games, the guy has 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, is batting .533 with an OPS of 1829. 1829. The guy is just clobbering the ball. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He just looks great up there. That's something to really look forward to. It looks like now we've got, for the future, 2 of the outfield spots locked up with Alcantara in center and Soler at one of the corner spots. And sure, Arizmendi Alcantara's had a little bit of an up and down season, some deceptive power, a few more strikeouts than you'd hope for, and overrunning some balls in center. But those are all growing pains that you're trying to get through this year rather than next year. And so that's a little bit of an exciting news. I mean, Alcantara's only batting .218, and he's got 57 strikeouts already in 48 games. So you don't like that, but the guy's, he's got all the tools. He's fast. He's got some deceptive power. He can hit anywhere on the field. He can turn singles into doubles. So he's a guy to look forward to. And Soler just looks like the real deal. So let's see what we have going forward. And hopefully, as Gary and I were talking yesterday on his drive to his family vacation, is The Cubs this offseason need to make moves. And my opinion is that, you have to get a top-line starter pitcher, some sort of number one guy. And my opinion is, I believe next year probably has a better crop of pitchers, like not this winter, but the winter after that. You're going to have David Price, you're going to have Samardzija back, you're going to have a few other guys, assuming nobody signs extensions. And this year you've got Max Scherzer and John Lester. So those are two good guys. My opinion is that it's really hard to sign a number one pitcher on a free agent market because you're competing against teams like the Anaheim Angels, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Boston Red Sox, the New York Mets, and the New York Yankees, who just seem to have bottomless pockets for dollars to spend. And the Cubs have a little bit of a financial issue right now with the new stadium, the deal with, as we've explained before on the show. You can go back and listen to some of the earlier episodes and check out the more in-depth version of that. But they just have, it's not that they don't have money, it's just that they have cash flow issues, because if they spend too much, they violate their contract with the Tribune and the Major League Baseball collective bargaining agreement. So it's not that they don't have money, it's just they don't have money to spend. So they have to be very careful. And when you're competing against the Yankees, who can spend whatever they want, and the Dodgers, who can spend whatever they want, because they're not in the same predicament the Cubs are, it makes it very difficult. So my thing is, I would much rather have David Price than any of these guys. But if you strike out this year by getting a top line guy, next year's still going to be a working through year, because you're not going to bring up Chris Bryant until next year. They've come out and said that this week. Chris Bryant won't be playing in the majors this year. Probably will be playing in the majors next year. So you're still going to have first full year for Baez, first full year for Soler, first full year for Alcantara, and then the first experience at all for Chris Bryant in the majors. So there's still going to be working through some things. You're going to have the younger pitchers. You're going to, have a lot of things you're working on. So if you don't get that top line starter next year, it's not the end of the world. But if you don't get one the year after, then you're actually wasting a year, because that's a prime year for you to actually make the playoffs. So my thinking is, if you can lock up somebody this year, you do it, because you can always try to do something again next year. Because if you sign a Max Scherzer, it doesn't stop you from signing a David Price as well. But if you don't get anybody this year, that cuts you down to next year. You absolutely have to, and you're going to way overpay for somebody because you have to. You're in a position of absolute must. This year you can be competitive. If you get somebody, great. If not, you can always come back the year after. And I was saying then, if you strike out on somebody like Max Scherzer, you strike out on somebody like John Lester, you could go for a mid-level starter, somebody that's a much more affordable option, but can fit in the middle or back end of your rotation to bolster it for when you do get a starter. Somebody like a number 3 pitcher, somebody you can that you can either put, when you finally do get a number 1, put Arrieta at number 2, and then you to toss up between Hendricks and whoever you sign to be number 3, 4, and then pushes everybody down, makes your bottom end of your rotation that much better. And then a veteran bat, somebody that isn't going to be a top line guy, but somebody that can come in and add some veteran experience to your hitting lineup. So if you don't add a top line starter this year and you're able to add those two pieces, you're not in such a bad position. So that's what we talked about a little bit. Also, a couple of incidents with Starlin Castro this week. Is the first one was he lollygagged on a single and kind of watched it, didn't hustle and try to go to second base, and fans erupted. And David Kaplan, who's normally a fairly even-keeled guy as far as it goes to the players, he lost his mind on Twitter and he lambasted anybody that tried to defend it. And there really was no defense to it. I mean, he just lollygagged it and looked like he was, I don't even know what he was thinking. Just lollygagged it to first. And those are the things you have to deal with when you have Starlin Castro, is that the the big hurdle for Starlin Castro to be great is Starlin Castro. He's a guy who's emotional and moody and a little bit of a prima donna, but the guy can hit a baseball. Arguably the best hitter on the Cubs this year. I mean, Anthony Rizzo's been great, but those two guys have been far and away the best hitters for the Cubs this year. And he's a guy that's a team-friendly deal. So he's a really talented guy. He's kind of an enigma. But the great thing about him is with such a need at shortstops in a lot of the top teams in baseball, is that having a shortstop that can hit the ball is a good commodity to have. Do you trade Starlin Castro for top-line pitching? Probably, but you don't do it this offseason, most likely. You probably do it after next season. You give Addison Russell, the guy you traded Samardzija for, an opportunity to get a little more seasoning. Addison Russell right now, he's 20 years old. He's down in Tennessee playing Double-A for the Smokies. And since coming over, he's played 49 games. He's batting .288 with 12 home runs, 36 RBIs. He's doing well. He's just going to have a little more seasoning under his belt before you can consider bringing him up, because he's playing well, but he's not tearing it up like Chris Bryant was. So after next season, maybe you looked at trading Starlin Castro because you can have Addison Russell come up and play the short Baez at second. Then you have Anthony Rizzo at first, Bryant at third. And so you're starting to fill out your roster a lot more, and you can move Starlin Castro for pitching. That's a move. The other incident with Starlin Castro was in the game today against St. Louis. John Lackey was pitching, and after hitting a pop-up fly ball, Starlin Castro yelled something in Spanish on his way to first, and Lackey apparently took note of something and started jawing with him, and the two started jawing at each other, and Cubs first base coach Eric Hinsky came over and was, trying to calm it down, and he had some words with Lackey, and then Yadier Molina came in and tried to play peacekeeper. Don't exactly know what the incident was, but Hinsky talked to Lackey a little, like the next inning, and told him what he was mad about, and Hinsky left it at that. And Starlin Castro was downplaying everything. He was saying, well, I don't know, it was just people in the heat of the moment, and I was upset with myself for popping up. But something definitely happened, because Lackey, both guys are a little bit of a short fuse, and Lackey's definitely known for his short fuse, and those two got at it going to first base. So that's just another minor incident, but with Starlin Castro, you never know what you're going to get. He's a good hitter, but he can completely blow it with mind-melting errors in short, or just some lollygagging plays, or just he's never fully there mentally, and you never know what you're going to get. So even though he's a great hitter and he's been a Cub for a long time, I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be sad if they traded him for some good pitching, not prospects, but actual major league ready players. And moving on to the White Sox, the White Sox are cleaning house. And that's really all they could say, is they're playing like crap, and they still have all the issues we've been talking about all season, where it's basically a two-man show, is the Chris Sale and Jose Abreu show. But they decided to start cleaning house, and they're going to have a very low payroll next year. I didn't check it out myself, but Gary was estimating it would be in the 50s, 50 millions. So that leaves them a lot of room to play with, to be able to sign free agents and bring some guys from overseas and things like that. So that if they're looking around to spend $100 million or the mid-90s, they have $45 million to play with per season, which can add a lot of ball players. So we'll see what Rick Hahn and the White Sox can do with that. But as far as the trades, is they traded Alejandro De Aza to the Orioles. So Baltimore sent two minor league right-handers to Chicago for De Aza. And De Aza hit .243 with 5 home runs, 31 RBIs, and 15 steals in 122 games for the White Sox this year. The two that Baltimore gave up were Mark Blackmore and Miguel Chalice. Blackmore he's a 22-year-old kid. He was 10-1 with a 3.18 ERA in 26 games with single-A Frederick. I mean, that's a great record and all, but in single A, he had a 3.18 ERA, and the opponents had a 2.99 batting average against him, which is not very good. He was the 16th round pick for the Orioles in 2011. And then Chalice is a 22-year-old with a 3-4 record, 4.48 ERA, and 30 relief appearances with single A Frederick and triple A Norfolk. The Orioles signed him as a free agent. So these two guys are really low-end prospects for the Orioles who have a pretty good farm system. These are really low-end guys. So basically, this is just a salary dump, player dump, getting rid of Alejandro De Aza. Same thing can be said about Adam Dunn. The White Sox traded him to the Oakland Athletics. And Oakland they are really being aggressive with who they're signing and trading for, because they really want to push. They've done several deals this year to acquire talent. They lost a lot of home run power since they traded Cespedes to Boston. So Adam Dunn is going to, for them, hopefully be the pop in the bat that they need to be able to go far into the playoffs and come off the bench and provide a little pop. So Oakland's going to acquire Adam Dunn and cash consideration from the Chicago White Sox for minor league pitcher Nolan Sanburn. This year, Adam Dunn is hitting .220 with 433 OPS, 20 home runs, 54 RBIs, and this is the final year of his deal. Sanburn, he's the third top 10 prospect that the Oakland A's had traded in 2014. He was their number 10 prospect according to Baseball America. He's 23 years old. He's 3-1 with a 3.28 ERA and a 1.44 WHIP in 71 innings with single A Stockton. He's working completely out of the bullpen, and he was a second-round pick in 2012 for Oakland. So basically, this is another salary dump, even though they're not really dumping any salary. It's just kind of clearing house. And Adam Dunn, after the trade, basically said that he's going to retire at the end of the year. So this is the final farewell for Adam Dunn and Paul Konerko. And so it's Adam Dunn. This is going to be his first time making the playoffs, assuming Oakland makes the playoffs. This will be his first time in his career that he's made the playoffs. So good for him. I hope that he enjoys the opportunity and to play postseason baseball. And then the last two things I want to talk about are Blackhawks things. And I know I've really been pooping the bed as far as the Blackhawks go, but there really hasn't been much to talk about. We've got the season coming up very soon. My loving wife, for our anniversary, she got the two of us Blackhawks Red Wings preseason tickets. So that was really nice. So I'm going to be seeing them before the baby's born. So in a couple weeks, be going to see them play both the training camp practice, the open practice, as well as the Red Wings game in the preseason. But the news bits are the Hockey News organization. They put together a poll of the best logos in the NHL, and not surprising to anyone that watches hockey, the Blackhawks were named the best logo in hockey. It's the best logo in hockey. I don't know why that's really news. It should have been the news who was number 2, but now we have proof that what the Chicagoans have known for a long time is that the Blackhawks have the best logo in hockey and possibly in sports. And the other bit of news is that Sheldon Brookbank is reportedly going to try out for the Calgary Flames this fall after realizing it's going to be, with the financial situation the Blackhawks are in, that he's going to be the outsider and they're not going to be able to come to an agreement. The Hawks said that they'd like to have him back if it worked out. He's coming off of a 2-year, $2.5 million contract. He's not going to be making the money he wanted to make, and he's not going to get the contract he wants. And the Blackhawks are going to basically try to get him for a team-friendly deal. And it didn't look like it was going to work out. And so Brookbanks is going to try out for Calgary. We'll see what happens there. He said he's not shutting the door to a comeback to Chicago, but I think he wants to test the waters and see what else is out there and if anybody else is willing to give him an opportunity. I really like Sheldon Brookbanks. He's a guy that's really hard-nosed. He'll do whatever you ask him to do, whether that be his natural position, playing defenseman and being being the eighth guy, seventh, eighth guy, and not playing very much. Or if they need him to come in and play forward, he's willing to do that. If you want him to go out there and fight somebody, he's willing to do that. It's whatever you need him to do. He's that kind of guy. He's a real team guy. I wouldn't mind seeing him back, but I also don't want him to lose out on an opportunity just to play for the Blackhawks. So hopefully he can get some playing time somewhere, and that would be sad for us as Chicagoans losing out on him, but it would be good for the guy. And that's really all. There's the Blackhawks news. We'll have more in the next couple weeks when camp starts and they start playing preseason games. We'll hopefully have Chris Block back on from Third Man In and some more news for the Blackhawks. And finally, I would like to take a second to talk about former Chicago Bear player Tim Shaw. Played for the Bears 2009, either 2008 and 2009 or 2009, 2010. He played around that time for the Bears. He was just diagnosed with ALS. So all of these ice bucket challenges and videos that people are shooting, hopefully some of this money is able to go to find a cure to help out a guy like Tim Shaw who's diagnosed. And we wish him the best in the situation. But unfortunately, it's a really terrible disease that there is no cure for, and most people don't. Once they have it, only single-digit % of people are able to survive 10 years with it. So basically, it's a ticking clock for Tim Shaw on how much time he has left, and that's a really sad thing to hear. So if you have available funds and you are looking to make a donation, definitely look into the ALS Foundation, and you can find all the information, I'm sure, in one of the 10,000 Ice Bucket Challenge videos. And the Chicago Bears stepped up when Tim Shaw called them out in his video of his Ice Bucket Challenge. And the Chicago Bears, they made a $10,000 donation to the ALS Foundation on his behalf. So if you're able to do that, that would be something that could really go a long way to help a lot of people. So on that sad note, thanks a lot for listening. And as always, you can check us out at swerskisports.com, SWERSKI sports.com. All of our contact information is on there, the Twitter, the Facebook, our email, as well as the hotline. Call in, leave hotline messages, and we'll play them on the air. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7.
the Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down, I wanna